We are live here on the No Ceilings NBA Draft Show, here on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel. We're also going to be on your podcast player of choice. I am your host, Stephen Gillaspie, joined as always by my co-host, Jam Boozer Hines. Jam, how are we feeling, brother? How's everything going on your end?
Fantastic. Happy to get on here with you again. I feel like it's been a little while as we're talking
It's been a minute,
offline.
yeah.
Yeah, you and Metcalf have been absolutely holding it down, killing it with all our March Madness recaps going live about, this little inside baseball here. You guys going on like 9, 10 o'clock, man. Like I'm falling asleep way ahead of then. So like I definitely commend y'all and appreciate y'all. And I'm sure the audience does too.
Yeah, Dirty Dancer in the chat says Steven
Yeah.
now podcasts 6 days a week. Man, it feels like it. I was telling
Yeah.
Jam before the show that I was like, yesterday being Monday, I think yesterday was Monday. Yeah, yesterday being
Yeah.
Monday, I was doing the dishes. I was staying up, and it was like 5 o'clock p.m. our time. I looked at my wife and was like, "Are you cool if I go take a nap?" She goes, "You never asked for a nap. Go lay down." So I got about an hour and a half down. Woke up, was still able to function and all that stuff. But yeah, man, it's exciting times, man, with March Madness and, boards. We have assignments due soon for
Yep.
NoCeilingsNBA.com. I was going to plug it at the end of the show, but why not plug it at the front? Jam, I think it's what, like 3 more episodes, and then, yeah, 3 more episodes, and I will be in Portsmouth together.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast everything is creeping up. And with March Madness, dude, we have it in waves. Thursday through Sunday was a blur. Yesterday slowed down. Today, you and I are recording. I have a piece coming up on Thursday this week on Darren Peterson. I hope everybody enjoys it. It's a look at
Mhm.
just like how the narrative is kind of shifting the evaluation, it feels like, with him, as opposed to like what we know and what we have known with him. Jam, I know that you've been on the road watching games and stuff, and you've been writing, so it's busy times, but
Yeah.
it's fun, man. Like, this is what we live for.
Absolutely. This is our time, especially now with everything ramping up. As you mentioned, we're going to be down in Portsmouth. The Combine, the G League Elite Camp is all coming up, so it's very, very exciting times for everyone.
It really is, man. And the whole thing that we're going to be doing on this show today, Jam, with it being the theme of March Madness, is we're talking about movers, right? We were talking about how many we wanted to discuss, how many
Mhm.
positives, how many players who maybe you've seen their draft stock take a little bit of a hit. And fun show idea. I can't wait to dive into it. And it just got me thinking, just with the idea of this, Jam, is that how do you, and I know that you love draft philosophy, so like I thought of you when I was thinking of this question in particular, of course, but I was like, how do you balance teetering between recency bias with the things that we're seeing, all the exciting stuff that we have going on right now, to anchoring bias, the impressions that we got during the off season or something that we saw early in the year that we're just kind of clinging to? How do you sort of teeter between those two things?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm glad you asked that. I'm looking forward to discussing this with you. Really, for me, honestly, it really has not been that hard. And I think as I do it year after year, this is year 16 doing this for me. I'm trying to
Sheesh.
strive to get better and better each year of really balancing that because I think really when you see and evaluate prospects for the first time, like you really are essentially just building that mental database, obviously physical too, you're taking your notes, but just like that mental narrative, that perception, just you're building that profile. And I think the NCAA tournament does not have that big of a effect on the data that I'm collecting. We talked about a little bit of this before, but it's more so this is a small slither of the piece of the whole pie of the puzzle, however you want to put it. Granted, this is like the big time situations from what I want to take from it. I'm just looking to see how guys step up in these moments where it is one and done. It is tournament style. It's win or go home. Anything can happen. So to see how different prospects step up to that in that environment, step up to the plate, how they perform, I will take the ones that, yeah, they're doing great. And I think really for me, just kind of to step it back just a little bit, I think it's a little bit more important for the ones who are the prospects who are like second round or really mid-major type of guys. I think just in past examples, taking it way back for someone like CJ McCollum and Lehigh, excuse me,
Yeah.
Yeah, Lehigh. And for him, what they did too almost got mixed up with my two heartbreaking Duke as a Duke fan, Lehigh and VCU, those teams are Eric Maynard. But seeing those guys have success against Duke, I think that kind of gives a little feather on the cap. It's like, hey, it's this clutch moment. You can go toe to toe with these big blue blood schools, these Power Five schools. So I think it matters more for me for the most part. Those guys are second round, and then the mid majors. And kind of last thing on this part, and give it back to you. I think of Alan Graves on those type of levels and what he's
Hmm.
trying to do, and he's already projected and essentially declared to be in this class. I think if he had a bigger game against Kentucky, I think his was more to kind of really put a little more value in because you're getting him in this stage against Kentucky.
It's interesting because I feel like there's no like one way to
Yeah,
look at pretty much anything in the draft, but March Madness too in particular, because I feel like we kind of tongue in cheek make jokes like as a scouting community of I will not let March Madness affect my opinion. I will not let March Madness affect my opinion.
yeah,
But to your point, this is high stakes basketball. This is, the conferences and stuff like that now make it, I feel like, maybe not as important with the conference alignment and NIL and you know these top tier prospects kind of concentrating into specific areas of college basketball. But I still think it holds weight. Everything is a data point, and
yeah,
I don't think that we have to say that like I put a lot of stock into this or I don't put any. Like it's all a data point. And I think I'm of the mindset to where I do think people, and I'm not saying you in particular, Jam, but just
hmm
like the greater scout community as a whole, I feel like people do let smaller sample sizes, and I'm raising my hand too. I feel like we let smaller sample sizes affect us more than we would like to admit. And I think that it's almost like a prideful thing. Because if you like go back and listen to people, and I listen to everybody,
hmm
if you go back and listen, you can listen to people how they're trending ultimately of like how their boards go. And it does date back to a small data point. You know what I mean? And so like I feel like it should be okay that if I watched player X like have an impactful game in March Madness that I'm impressed by that and I do let that impact my evaluation. I just can't make it be everything or nothing at all, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think that's pretty much right in line with Dirty Dancer in the chat is saying we should weigh high leverage more without throwing the rest of the sample away. So yeah, I'm with that as well. You want to be able to value these type of situations, but know like yes, there's priors from high school. There's a whole season of college basketball. If
Yep.
there are upperclassmen returners, there was multiple levels to kind of go back into as well. And I think one of the important things is the momentum that's created during this time.
Mm.
Whether that's people are kind of buying into the small sample, but I think it's more so that momentum that builds up. So, like, hey, they're playing well right now. Can this carry over into next year? I think there's a couple of guys that we'll talk about who that pertains to, at least for me. And
Yeah.
then those are going to potentially carry that over into the pre-draft process. Like, man, they are coming hot off a really strong NCAA tournament run. The combine measurements look good. They, and just kind of start to really have that snowball effect on their stock.
And the way that you explain that in my head, the way that it just kind of like an epiphany almost just happened in my head is like this isn't a full sentence, but it can be an exclamation point, right? Like
Yeah,
there's going to be one
love it.
player in particular that I'm going to be talking about who has impressed me that I just feel like has affirmed them in a ranking that they had been trending to regardless, but just the way that they've been executing as of late, I have them way higher on this big board than I did before, just
hmm
because of all the things that do build into. And I do think momentum, like hitting your stride at the right moment of the season, it's impactful. Sometimes it is. How many people have we seen on social media so far, Jam? Just like have really strong basketball takes at this point of the season who haven't been heard from through most of the year. And like I don't mean that as like a gatekeeper, so to speak, because I do think that it's awesome when we have like a big inrush within the community of people who are basketball fans at the same time now. I think that's awesome and it's fun. And it causes me to sometimes look at players in a different light. This goes back to the show that you and I did with Keith Smith. Keith
Yeah.
knows who people are, but he is more into his draft scouting at this point of the season than he is in like October, November, December.
Yep.
And people do put in the work, but I just think it's interesting to see like how you said that momentum allows them to propel at the right time of the year because, scouts have been watching all season long, but like owners, maybe some team scouts haven't even firmed up a big board yet, but now they're starting to like really lock in, all of it matters.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think for the most part, I would say the community at large, and especially NBA teams, the pro side as well, of course, they take all of this. It's a data point, as you mentioned. It's not overreaction to March, but of course, you want to get it in there, see different matchups. Well, we potentially could have had Darren Peterson going up against Cayden Boozer and potentially defended by Dame Sarr, who we'll get to in this episode as well, too.
Yeah.
So just the different matchups you get to see in March when it means so much. It's incredibly exciting. We get to see Zuby against Cam, so they get a chance for Zuby to continue to have his stock rise and show what he can do against a top level big. So, yeah, man, it's just such good stuff and an exciting time where there could be so many movers. Some people that go down depend on how much you value the tournament, as we'll continue to talk about. But it's just there's a lot that's at stake in this tournament when we talk about just obviously wanting to win the championship and then draft stock.
Yeah, there's a lot that boils into it. So, Jam, let's go ahead and get into it now, just to kind of like set the table for the audience here. A lot of it is in the name of the show, but I'm just going to break it down regardless, right? So, March Madness Movers, what Jam and I are going to do, we each pick 3 prospects that we think their stock is trending upward, and we'll alternate for that. Now, we do each have one prospect that we feel like their draft stock did take a hit. Now, the magnitude of that, the severity or the importance of it, it might vary between Jam and I, but we do want to bring something alternatively to the positive sides. Maybe some prospects who maybe we do have a little bit more questions now than what we did at the beginning. So, Jam, with that being said, I'm going to be selfish and I'm going to kick things off
Yeah,
in a big way
good.
here. Yeah, with a prospect who I had 23rd on my last board. And again, this is from a month, so it's not all March Madness, but there is an exclamation point at the end of the sentence that he has been building up into this point. That is Michigan big man Aday Mara, 7'3", 255 pounds. For those who don't know, on the season, Jam, he averaged 12 points per game, just under 7 rebounds, 2.5 assists, over 2.5 blocks, almost half a steal per game. Shooting splits of 67 from the floor, 25% from deep, and only 55% from the free throw line. Now, we all know that, well, most of us know. If you don't know, that's okay. And by the way, welcome. If you're here watching for the first time, you're just now diving into the season, we appreciate you checking us out. It's a fun time. We love you all for being here. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for helping us build this community that we have right now. But on the season, those are strong numbers, Jam. And for those who have been watching, Michigan, we all know that the front court consists of Yaxel Lindenborg, Morez Johnson Jr., who in his own way has been rising up throughout the entire season.
Yes.
And of course, Aday Mara. And all of them have been productive. There's a little bit of your turn, my turn throughout the season, not in the sense of a ball hogging nature, but Michigan has been afforded the opportunity to rely on these guys in different ways at different times throughout the season and continue to carry them into a number 1 seed in March Madness. I've loved what I've seen so far from Aday Mara in the competition. So far in March Madness, he's averaged 17.5 points per game, 6 rebounds, 5.5 assists, Jam, 3.5 blocks, a half of a steal, field goal percentage even higher at 68.2, and free throw percentage has gone up to 62.5. So, Jam, I want to ask you just to kind of, what were your thoughts of Aday Mara coming into the year? How has that progressed, and has he impressed you so far with what we've seen in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, he's absolutely someone that has impressed me throughout the year and especially into the tournament. Coming into the year, I was very hopeful for him to be able to play a big role for Michigan coming in from UCLA. I think when he first got to UCLA, the consensus was, well, let me just speak to my to my
Yeah, go
thoughts on
ahead.
it. I think it's maybe close to the consensus with him coming in. But this is a guy when he was first coming in from Spain, it was like, hey, this is a giant of a human being, good mover, incredible passer. There's some touch to work with. He's going to be a real issue. Fast forward to UCLA, whether it's a combination of just the coaching staff not necessarily putting him in the right positions, um, his conditioning, and then, just getting used to the collegiate game, all that I think played a role in his first 2 years at UCLA. Then he comes to Michigan and he's playing a career high in minutes, just the opportunity, everything is there. And he puts up 12 points per game, 6.9 rebounds per game, 2.5 assists per game, 2.7 blocks per game. And he's really looking like the player that we had hoped to see when he was first coming in into the States. And I guess a little transparency. I was at the game. It was more so media, not more so media, but more so personal here. And I'll say there were some adult beverages enjoyed this weekend in Buffalo
That's
watching
okay.
watching Michigan and St. Louis and those games. But the scout hat is always on. The scouts' eyes are always there. And just seeing him in person, man, like him moving at that size, every bit of the listed 7'3", the movement skills are there. There was a couple defensive plays that really stood out outside of him just being a ridiculous rim deterrent throughout the game. It was one possession where Avila sets a screen right after the inbound, and he switches right around half court. And he shows the mobility, the movement skills to recover and get the block. I believe it was on Quentin Jones right there at the rim. And then he's able to show that type of movement skills to block shots at that size. I think it's just absolutely incredible. And then on the offensive end, really what he showed, I think, across both game is just that touch around the rim. We mentioned him not really going to be someone that's going to step out the three, at least right now, just shooting 25% from three, not really looking to do any of his damage out there, which makes perfect sense considering the way Michigan is constructed in his game. He's only taken, I believe it's a total of 8 3-point attempts.
Yeah, very low. Like 0.2 per 100
Exactly.
possessions or something like that, yeah.
But I do believe in a touch around the rim. He had multiple jump hooks with both hands. One of my favorite plays, I'm sure you love this as well, in that St. Louis game. Catches on the block against Avila, fakes the pass in the middle, quick spin, and then the finish. It's like, okay, I
Yeah.
like that. So it's not to say that he's going to be someone you dump the ball in the score, but I do like when you are that tall, the play finishing is there, the lob threat. But when you are able to get a mismatch of just a switch or just guys who aren't going to be that much, give you too much of resistance in the post, he can go ahead and score on those guys with a soft touch, drop step, spin, and those type of things.
Great breakdown. I'm glad that you were able to see him in person, and I'm glad that his game spoke to you the way that it did. Like you, a little skeptical of him coming into the year because yes, he's tall. Yes, he has touch. Yes, he can even pass, but he feels kind of thin, even though he's listed at 255. Not always like super duper strong, but is always involved in the play. Watching the tournament, you talked about the block where he had on Jones, and I believe that's the one where he's driving and he has to like flip his hips on
Mhm.
like a back pedal recovery state to turn around and like just that level of coordination at that size to where his body is facing like into the basket, has to adjust to flip his hips to face, let's say, like the sideline out of bounds, the baseline out of bounds area, turn and recover, and then block with what would have been his outside hand on that outside on the way to a recovery state in
Yeah.
just a matter of a second is incredible. And it's not even just the blocking around the rim, but there were people who wanted to take him outside because if you're a guard, what do you do with the big man on the switch? You take him outside, you lull him to sleep, and then you try to chunk up a shot over the top of him. How many times so far in the tournament, Jam, has he blocked a shot defending out in open space, and doing so not just like coincidentally or accidentally, but intentionally blocking shots, using that timing, using his length, understanding of when the shot's going to get up, and then just having just like the physical, like the kinetic ability to be able to block the shot in the quick second, half second, quarter second, whatever it is, in that quick moment to be able to block the shot. And then to be able to have the ball in the paint and fake passes. The only way that you can fake passes is if you can pass in the first
Yep.
place. And how many times have we seen him spray opposite corner, opposite wing passes over the top of the defense from that post, or at the top of the key, finding cutters in step on slick bounce passes, passing over the top of the defense because he's able to with the freakish size that he has, right? And then the thing that still blows my mind is that even like, let's talk about the one play to rule them all that he had, right? With Yaxel throwing that lob and he just catches it facing away from the basket and is able to lay it in. Just freaky shot, man.
Yeah.
And the comparison that I want to throw your way, Jam, that I think, well, I was actually talking about this with Metcalf, and I think this is what gives me at least a little bit of a safe floor and comfort and be able to draft someone like Aday Mara, even though I do think that he can be a little kind of, you know, kind of stiff and rigid at times, but still overall mobile. Ryan Kalkbrenner was a player who I was lower on as a big man.
I love that name.
And I feel like Aday Mara is more gifted. He's more mobile. I trust him in space more. I trust him as a passer more. And I think he's just as potent around the basket. And now if we redraft Ryan Kalkbrenner, obviously he goes way higher. And I think that if Aday Mara can do what Kalkbrenner has done, but better, I have him 11th on my board now, Jam. And I'm not one of these dudes who's like
it.
I'm not big man pilled to the point to where like I look at a, you know, and people scout in different ways. This is not me like assassinating anyone scouting, right? I'm not one of these people who like look at a big man and I look at the profile and I see all these greens and all these pluses and all these check marks and I'm like, okay, like he has to be super duper high on my board. Like I don't scout my bigs like that. But watching the film, going back and looking at the stuff throughout his season, and of course, yes, looking at the numbers, I think Mara is worthy of being taken that high because of what we've seen from other anomalous big men being drafted in the NBA.
Yeah, man, that's a lot of good stuff to really tackle and sink our teeth into. Wouldn't expect anything else from you, Steven, but
Appreciate it.
Yeah, with Mara, you brought up the name like Kalkbrenner. I think that's a really good outcome for him. Maybe that's one of the lower outcomes for him, which I think could be a medium outcome.
Which is scary.
Yeah, which is very scary. And I think Kalkbrenner having success and, you know, on a larger scale, on a larger outcome, someone like Edey and Klingon as well, too. These big, giant guys who are mobile or just mobile enough and can block shots, be play finishers as well, too. It's just tough to see them not finding the way to contribute, and then having the guys that will mention the Edeys and the Cockburners as well. Them having success makes it easier to be like, hey, I can trust that Mara can reach something like this. I've seen this. Not only that I've seen it recently. And you know, and I wish I had Cockburn a little bit higher, and that's playing into my mind too with Mark. Not only are you getting a lot of the same defensive stuff, what Mar does as a passer, just having that some of that modern feel to him, can do some functional stuff with DHOs. He's not going to do too much as far as attacking off the bounce, but he can do those type of things and short roll and really maximize and optimize just what he can do as a passer with that modern skill set, despite not being that shooter. So him being a play finisher and operating the elbows and the top of the key, as you mentioned as well, too, man, that is just such a fun collection of tools to go with what that anchoring skill or tool is going to be with him being a shot blocker and rim protector on the defensive end.
And if I was worried about the clunkiness of the foot speed or his like cognition, the
Mhm.
ability to, like I said, like what I'm seeing in March Madness, him being able to step out in space, be on an island by himself, and not, trip over himself defending out in space, that's huge, man. Like NBA teams looking at a 7'3" guy who can do that stuff, who has the passing ability, who can
Yeah.
survive, like who can initiate in DHO sets, who are going to catch the ball in the paint and keep the ball high and not turn it over in like half a second, get a shot up. I look at Kalkbrenner like Namias Cato, how he's been revolutionized in a Boston Celtics sort of ecosystem. I think that the gargantuan big man is making a pronounced comeback. So there's also the aspect that I have to take into consideration as a scout too, Jam, is how are NBA teams valuing a player like this? Now, if you take him too high, you might lose some of that value, right? Because maybe NBA teams are saying, yes, I can go and just get an Amias Queta like off the scrap heap and plug him in, and now all of a sudden he's like a median level starter in the NBA. But again, we're seeing NBA teams invest draft capital just so they have them long term. Like they don't got to sign them to a 1 year deal out of free agency, and then all of a sudden they're not going to be able to retain them.
No doubt. And let me ask you this, 'cause I think a lot of it is, I think I just really just hinted at it, but having big men who have some sort of modern tool, do you I I think those are a little bit more valuable when you really are looking to put someone up in that top 10 or the lottery as well. When I look at someone like Kalkbrenner, maybe there was some ability if you really were kind of project and you believe in the shooting touch, that's something we're really going to anchor down on. But I think, and I'm just curious to get your thoughts on this. How do you value and kind of separate guys like Mar versus Ugano Oyinso from UVA as well, someone who is more of just a strict play finisher and shot blocker. Yes, he showed some touch flashes as well too,
Mm-hmm.
but he doesn't have that like, all right, this is a true offensive skill like Mara does with the passing. And it doesn't have to be Oyinso, it can be anyone of that kind of like ilk.
I'll put it to you like this. I look at what Mara has done and our friends at Synergy, and just shout out to Synergy, by the way.
Hmm.
Really appreciative of the partnership that we have with them. They're great folks over there. Um, Pick and roll man, Mara ranks in the 74th percentile. On post ups, he's in the 75th percentile. On cuts, he's in the 87th percentile. On putbacks, he's in the 91st percentile. Block percentage of 12.7, free throw rate over 50, in the 97th percentile in at rim efficiency, and in the 83rd percentile in frequency, has a 1.3 assist to turnover ratio. So we're looking at efficiency. Even though he's a little bit more locked into being like an at rim finisher, he
Hmm.
gets to the rim in a number of ways, right? So you want a little bit of that variety. You can trust him to do the big man things. He's got a offensive rebound percentage of 11 and a defensive rebound percentage of 21.5, right? So he checks, if you are going to have, like you said, Jam, like one of these big like guys who just specialize in the big man things, he's very good at all of them. But the separator is the level of feel, right? Like on
Absolutely.
Yenso, do you trust him at the top of the key, at the elbow extended, to get into a handoff, recognize that the handoff isn't there, reject it, stick the hip out, right? Do that little bit
Yeah.
of a screen, ball up top, pass it, and initiate over the top of the defense. Or DHO, screen, throwing a bounce pass on the baseline cutter. Like, can they read options? That's where I trust Mara. And,
Yeah.
something Keith Smith has said that has always stuck in my head when it comes to big men is big men are asked to do more in the NBA today than they ever have been before. I trust Mara to do those traditional big man things, but he's a big man plus because you have the trust in him to have an offense sort of go through him. I'm not saying he's like Jokic or Shangun or Domas Sabonis or anything like that, but Steven Adams has offense run through him, and we don't think of him as like a playmaking big man. but you trust him to make decisions with the ball in his hands, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a huge weapon and advantage that Mara has at not just at the 5 spot, but to be 7'3", with that length and just all that comes with being that size. And I think you say you had him at 11 is what were you
Yeah.
saying?
Hmm.
Yeah, I currently have him at 20. I can certainly see him
I had him at
creeping up.
23,
Yeah.
so I get it. You know,
Yeah, certainly creeping up into that lottery conversation. And I think the Michigan is going to be on this long run that they're already on, but they are a team that we kind of really tracked from the beginning. When you are that type of a team who are NCAA title contender, especially how dominant they have been, and then get into the tournament. When you are one of the star players in the team, you are going to get that type of attention. And I think that he's done wonders with that attention and some of the expectations that were on him in prior years, and is really just really flourished this year. And I'm curious to see how high that he ends up going and how teams value him against other guys. I see like Krevis and Pat Gamba as well too, who brings a similar thing with that passing feel and the defense too.
and I think the Krivos one more so compared to Pat, and I don't have Pat as like one of my guys whose stock took a hit, but easily could have been. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm actually kind of upset that I didn't even consider his name.
Oh,
But
really? I don't want to give it
yeah,
too quick, but like, why
go
would
ahead.
you? I'm just curious. Why would you bring him in it, considering that he's been hurt and like when he did play, although limited and rusty, he was very impactful.
Because I don't know. I would maybe give the slight little pushback on the impactful because he gave the ball away a lot in those games. But to be honest with you, man, like I know that he was hurt, but that's not the first time he's been hurt. Like this is accumulation of injuries for a big man. I would imagine like if I'm investing millions of dollars in a player, like that would make me be a little bit more apprehensive, right? And if he's taken weeks to fight through an injury and the decision making regressed to the level that it did after being rusty, like he's going to quit playing basketball no later than what, like April 3rd. When's the next time he's going to play organized basketball? It's going to be months down the line, right? So if I'm thinking like he's had a couple weeks off of basketball, the decision making regressed as much as it did. Yes, he's slowed down. He's going to get hurt in the NBA. Like that's just you're big playing in the NBA and you already have a history of it. Like I think it's safe to assume that he will at some point get hurt again. Like what is that recovery going to be like over time? Like these are things that if I'm putting myself in the shoes of like a decision maker investing millions of dollars, like no doubt that that would be entering my calculus in terms of like how I'm viewing him as a draftable guy.
Yeah, I think long term, the injury, I definitely agree with that. You have to factor it in. I just think just for the NCAA tournament, I wouldn't say stock down because of the injury because he was already out. Like he's come back and
Yeah.
played that game from an injury. There's rust, and I understand you're putting how you're evaluating that rust thing, but I just don't put that much stock in it. He was what I think 4 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists in that game, and just
Or turnovers too, I think, if
yeah,
I'm not mistaken.
it's
Yeah.
going to happen, but I'm not really too worried about someone coming off an injury in that role. And considering what the team looked like and what that did for Boozer and the rest of the team, like that's really what I'm looking for. It's someone else that, similar to Mara, that they were able to run offense through. They were able to lift the defense and really changed a lot for Duke. So that's really what I'm looking for. I know we got a little side tangent
No, it's all
about
good.
Gamba, yeah,
That's the game though, right? Like
yeah,
I say game, but like this is the exercise is
yeah,
how are you perceiving stock being impacted on how you observe the game and what matters to you, right? So
exactly.
it's I think it's good that we get these like little bit of like differences within these players. So I'm glad that we were able to go on a little bit of a tangent there, but I think that that kind of encapsulates the essence of this exercise, right? So
Sure.
Jam, you wanted to bring up a completely different big entirely, and I'm more with you. I'm more in line with you on this one than I am on Pat, to be perfectly honest with you. But so why don't you go ahead and introduce the first guy that you wanted to mention as one of your March Madness movers?
Yeah, absolutely. One of my March Madness movers were certainly big man Tarris Reed out of UConn. with Tarris, man, like this is a huge, huge human being. I got a chance to see him in person when they played against Georgetown. He looks every bit of that 6'10", 260-pound listing, just strong, stout, powerful. It is clear as day physically, like he is ready from the NBA for the NBA, and probably physically has been ready for the NBA for the past few years, honestly, and don't want to bury the lead too much, but in the opening round game against Furman, just an incredible game. 31 points, 27 rebounds, 3 assists as well. Incredibly efficient from the field, 12 of 15, 7 of 9 from the line, and a whopping 11 offensive rebounds. This is someone that averages 3.1 offensive rebounds per game anyway. And there was just nothing that Furman could do about him. They couldn't move him off the block when he sealed guys, got position everywhere he wanted, showed the touch on the jump hooks, as I mentioned, 11 offensive rebounds, drawing fouls off of that, scoring off of that, kickouts as well, too. Similar stuff in the UCLA game. Got it going a little bit more in the second half, but all over the glass, blocking shots as well, too, showing a little bit of the jump hook as well. For me, the guy that's a double-double threat with the NBA body at 6'10", and there's also some passing feel. I really think that Tarris Reed is one of the more underrated big men in the whole class. I had him in our last ranking at 43, so this right there in that mid-second round. I think he's someone that's going to move up for me closer to that early second round. You can definitely talk me into late first. I just think that this is someone that's going to be a backup rotational big. There's so many of the great big man things that you want as well. Powerful screen setter. 2, I think that's very good value for someone like that who could potentially be a spot starter for you or a full-time starter, depending what the circumstances are.
Great name. If you're talking about what he's done throughout the regular season, Jam, averaging just over 14 points per game, barely under 9 rebounds per game, almost 2.5 assists per game. Do I have that right? I don't know if that number is correct. Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
2 blocks per game, 1 steal per game, shooting 63% from the floor, just under 59% from the free throw line. Then you look at what he did in March, what he has done in March Madness so far. Over 20 points per game, 20 rebounds per game, 2.5 assists, 1.5 blocks, a half a steal, shooting 65%. So even better than what he already was during the season, which was great. And then shooting 79% from the free throw line, right?
Yeah.
So improvements in that area, almost actually a 20% swing in free throw percentage so far in March Madness, Jam. He's interesting for me, but I think I have him like somewhere around like 34, 35,
Okay.
something like that, my big
I like
board.
it.
But then I consider guys like Flory Badunga, who I have over him. I have Henry Vasar over him. I think it's very close. And to be honest with you, like I feel like if I'm digging in, this is going to be like a range on my board that I have to just like sink my teeth into a little bit more, especially with the bigs.
Yeah.
I feel like the top of the class at big man is not very strong, but when you get to like the middle and late portions of the first round, I feel like there's a lot of names without a lot of separation. And I feel like that's going to be the important part of like assessing my big board moving forward is what is the level of separation between Tarris Reed compared to a Henry Vasar? What do I value more in the NBA from a big man between a Henry Vasar and a Tarris Reed, a Flory
Exactly.
Badunga? Zubi Ejiofor is a name that's been coming up recently. Ruben Chinyelu is another name that people have been throwing around as a potential late first
Mhm.
round guy. You said that you have him in the 40s. You see him going up. How are you kind of comparing him to other big men? Because in a lot of ways, like that's how we affirm a ranking is comparing them to their peers at their position.
Yeah, great question and evaluation on them. I'm right there with you, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. I think it comes down to essentially just how we really go from postseason rankings and taking a look once we have everything at the end. So like Basar, for example, I think is going to be someone that's going to be a reliable NBA shooter. Is he going to be an upper 30 shooter? Is he going to be a Quentin Post type of shooter? Probably
Mm.
not, but I think he's going to be a reliable shooter. Do I think that's more valuable than someone like Tarris Reed, who's going to give you more of the traditional big man stuff plus some passing feel? So that's what I'm trying to figure out. What type of, typically I will value that shooting, but it's like, hey, if it's not going to be at that elite level and he's not doing, granted, Vassar, he had a double digit rebound game against VCU and stepped up when
Yep.
Caleb Wilson's out. But can he do more of those big man things that Tarris can do? You know, what is that gap in between what he does and the shooting value? You know, so that's kind of, as you mentioned before, the game that we really play. And I think right now I am valuing what Vassar does as a shooter and a floor spacer. And I think once we do our deeper dives, I think I will have them a lot closer. And I see mentions our name in the chat from B. Kelly, like Jefferson, and Norm Rad talks about Joshua Jefferson, Zuby, Tarris, like all these type of bigs. Man, it's going
I
to
don't look at Jefferson as a big. Like that's
really,
a big
that's going to
philosophy.
be it'll be a different conversation for us. We may get into it. I don't know if we're going to do it now because I don't see him playing the three. I think he's most definitely a big. Maybe you don't categorize the four as a big.
I don't. I
Yeah,
think there's fours who can toggle back and forth. I don't look at Jefferson as a guy who is going to be able, like, I don't think that the small big is in vogue anymore as like what people still kind of like give value to. Like that's just my own personal
yeah.
like observations. I don't think that that type of a big man is as valuable a commodity anymore as what it was say like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think it just depends for me on the player, and then we'll just talk about
Like B-ball
Jefferson.
Paul maybe is kind of like one of those who I think does give minutes at the 5, but I don't think anybody really likes B-ball Paul at the 5 minutes, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely more so a four. And I think going back to B-ball Paul Reed's evaluation, I never really valued him as a four, as a guy made. I'm excuse me, as a five. I still looked at him as a big man as opposed to a big wing. And I think this kind of goes into the way we see positions too, which will be a really fun episode that we'll maybe try to tackle before the end of the
That'd be fun.
cycle. But just real quickly with Jefferson, like I just look at him as a big man that's going to play the majority of the four, even though he's at 6'8", because I just don't see him as a wing or a big wing. I just don't see that type of handle, that type of skill to play on the perimeter like that. That's why I categorize him more as a big.
Okay. And I think that that's fair. And let's get it back to the Tarris Reed aspect
Mm-hmm.
of it, though. Here, Jam, guy who we touched on the rebounding numbers of Aday Mara and the percentages, right? Tarris
Monster
Reed,
rebounder.
14 and a half offensive rebound percentage, 25.2 defensive, block rate of 9, free throw rate of 44.1, assist percentage of 18.5. So I feel like he's a guy who almost gets typecasted in a way as like he's just kind of like a rough and tumble big man, but there's underlying feel for Tarris as well. And then if you look at pick and roll man, 91st percentile, post up 77th, on cuts 51st, putbacks 64th. His far 2 point percentage jam is at 46.3. Now I know that that's not like the highest volume, but you don't really see a lot of big man comfortable taking that shot anyway, right? So Tarris being able to showcase a little bit of touch like that, maybe maybe you buy into that long term. I don't think that's what I'm anchoring my evaluation on,
Mm-hmm.
but if you get that out, that's obviously like a cherry on top of the sundae. BPM of 11.3, like he is the man on UConn. I know Maxwell has been singing his praises all year. I know with Maxwell, he's been like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Like, how come I'm ranking him this high and no one else is? How high could you like looking at your board, Jam? How high could you realistically seeing Tarris ending up for you?
Somewhere in that late first round, like 20 to 30, certainly 20 to 35. Like if someone took him at the end of the first round, I would not really have any complaints about it.
Like the
I think
Detroit Pistons, backup big man?
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I was gonna wait to the end, but you've already said it. But he
I'm sorry.
reminds me, he reminds me a little bit of a less explosive Jalen Duren. It's
Mm.
just I think if he had that type of explosiveness that Duren has, I should say, that he would be more considered almost as a top 20 lock, really in that lottery. It's a very similar frame, just strong, physical, mature frame beyond their years, getting that early, be able to be functionalizing on both ends, carving out position on the defensive end, holding guys out, and then on the other end, um, deep seals and pick and roll stuff. Duran, also very underrated passer as well. Not the short roll passer that I think Reed is, but I think it's very comparable. They bring you a lot of very similar things, just minus the explosiveness, the vertical pop from Reed. So I do think that is a apt comparison. I'm looking at other potential ones for him, but the Durham, when you talk about that body, the physicality, the skill set, that's what stood out to me the most.
Yeah, and it's like we've been podcasting for a little while together, Jam, because I was naturally just gonna go into. I think the hard thing for me has been like, what is the comparison for
Yeah.
Tarris Reed? Because he's not like a true footer at that position.
Hmm.
He's more mobile than what I think he gets credit for. But to be honest, like he's not like blazing or anything like that. He's just like he's a solid mover at the position. Barely any projectability at a shot. He is a better passer than given credit for. I just kind of struggle with the comparison. I'm gonna have to think on the Jalen Duren one a little bit more, but I think that I'm more in line of like that Detroit Pistons type of big man. I feel like he would be like a natural fit within that system.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a fit anywhere because the way he plays, it's a very translatable NBA role, not a lot of usage, going to earn the respect of teammates, second chance, creation points on the glass, going to clean the glass on the other end too, make good decisions, DHOs, have that modern feel too. And last thing I want to touch on, I'm so glad you talked about the far two percentage and kind of some of the touch being able to see him live as well, go through warm-ups, seeing the big men do a lot of their touch drills, going baseline to
Yeah.
baseline, working on floaters, short jumpers and all, short roll decisions and all that type of stuff. That got me become even more of a believer in what the touch could be. And like you said, if you're anchoring your evaluation of him becoming a shooter, I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah.
But I do believe and willing to not necessarily, I wouldn't say that I'm anchoring my evaluation in this, but I think if he hits that more of the higher end outcome, there could be a mid-range shooter in that. And I think that's more achievable than someone that's, pick and pop threes or corner threes. We'll see. But him working that short roll, hit the short jumper, elbow jumpers, those type of things, I can certainly see that being very well in the reason of the realm of possibilities for him.
I love that, Jim. Great breakdown. So glad that you brought his name up and that you wanted to discuss him. We're gonna hit this quick break. On the other side of it, we're gonna get into our next group of two prospects that we wanted to break down. I'm gonna be kicking mine off with a player who I haven't had in my first round in a long time. And again, watching him play in March Madness, and again, what's the momentum been like for him? I'm bought back into him being a
Let's
back end of
go.
the first round pick. We'll find out who this player is on the other side of this break. Just hang tight and we'll be right back. All right, we are back here on the No Ceilings NBA Draft Show here on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel. We're also on your podcast player of choice. Jam and I, we're talking about March Madness movers. We opened the show breaking down how we were going to go forward with the show. We asked a question about how do we balance recency bias to anchoring bias. It really just matters of the prospect you like as to which bias you have in an argument with somebody else, right? Like that's how that works. But Jam and I, we covered Tarris Reed out of UConn and Aday Mara out of Michigan, just two big men who have had stellar seasons, and March Madness has only accentuated that. Jam, I'm going to kind of get a little, I'm not going to say controversial, but this is a player who I think people had high expectations on coming into the year. Early on, it's been easy to move off of him. I think if you go back, if you haven't noticed it, it snuck under the radar for me, just full transparency. watching him in the tournament, going back and looking at numbers, going back and looking at film, I feel like Aday Sarr has kind of snuck back up into. He should be a prospect that we're considering being a first round guy again this year. Aday Sarr, the Duke kind of like wing forward combo, came into the season with like some underlying playmaking potential with his game. Duke just hasn't leaned into that at all this year. He's been very much so specialized, as you know, these teams with a lot of prospects end up specializing prospects, right? Dame, 6'8", listed, 190 pounds on the season, only 6.5 points per game, under 4 rebounds, barely over 1 assist per game, under half a block, 1 steal. These efficiency numbers, Jam, on the season, not stellar, right? Less than 40% from the floor, under 32% from deep, only 55% from the free throw line. Jam, during the tournament, though, and this upward momentum, this upward trajectory that he's been riding over the past couple of weeks, in March Madness so far, almost 10 points per game, 5 boards, over 1.5 assists, 1.5 blocks, 1.5 steals. Field goal percentage is what it is, 33%, but the 3-point percentage, Jam, 36.4%. Free throw percentage at 83.3. On the last board, I had him at 44. My current rankings that I have him back up at 23. Now, I understand that this is not going to be a popular evaluation probably right now, but if anyone's paid attention to me so far this season, the evaluations that I've given so far, at the time they weren't popular, and some of them have maintained popular, some of them I'm just not going to talk about because that's how we do stuff in the draft community, right? We don't talk about our misses. But in all seriousness, Aday Sarr, Jam, I think the evaluation is simple. He is a tremendous defender with good size and good length, and he's shooting about 39% on corner threes.
Yep.
And with the sell that we had coming in, there's got to be some underlying stuff for teams to develop into. I think he's hitting his stride at the right time. Rangy defender, mobile, agile, just a greyhound on the defensive end. He's going to be a game wrecker on that side. And at his size, his fluidity and mobility, if you can put him in the corner and he can hit 40% from 3, getting that guy like 23rd in the draft is a home run every time.
Yeah, it really is. And I think for a lot of people, as you mentioned, Sarr is someone that probably oscillated between in that first round and that second round. And I think for me, what really got his stock back, because remember, like he started out the season starting, kind of being in and out the starting lineup and going through that little, I wouldn't necessarily rough patch, but just kind of figuring out patch and evaluation patch of just trying to figure out what exactly works for him on a collegiate level, what's asked of him, and especially we've really seen what he can do. I think I want to say it was that Louisville game that I think has really reignited his stock. It was in January. Ryan Conwell was going crazy to start the game. And then, you know, in that second half, particularly, John Shire says, "Hey, Dami, we need you. You are the best perimeter defender that we have." And he goes out and he essentially turns off the water on Ryan Conwell. And then I think it was the next game or a couple games after, he gets the Ibuka Okori assignment, holds him to 9 points. And I think from there, we really started to see the Aday Sarr that we hope to see for the majority of the year, especially defensively, really start to flourish. You know, I think he has the case to being the best perimeter defender in the class. And you mentioned the corner threes, shooting 39% on corner threes. I think he's going to be a reliable shooter. It looks good. It may not necessarily be someone who can shoot upper 30s, but you mentioned they can be a high-level corner three-point shooter. He showed a little bit of some of the shot-making versatility. He had a nice little step-back 3 in that TCU game to beat the shot clock that looked pretty clean. He tried to go for it again later in the game, but he missed it. But I did like seeing that, a couple of relocation threes that he hit as well too. You know, so I think he still is working through some confidence stuff as a shooter. There was it was actually the first play of the game against TCU. Malik Brown got in a short roll, kicked out to Cade in the corner, and then once Cayden had it, Dame was starting to cut. It was actually once that Malik kicked it out to him on the corner, but then he stepped back to shoot the three, but he actually passed up that good look and traveled on it. And my mind was like, I mean, just shoot the ball, shoot the ball. Then he gets it like 2 possessions later, nails a corner three, no hesitation. So there are some, not just particularly in the return, but there are moments similar throughout through the season where he is battling some confidence issues or just being a little bit unsure if like that's the shot I should be taking, but we need him. I say we, that's my Duke fandom coming out.
There we go.
But also as the evaluator, we need and want him to take those type of shots. And granted, that shot was on the wing, wasn't the corner three that time, but wanting to see him continue to shoot these type of shots and just really be confident there. You know, as you mentioned, the role for him on the NBA level is going to be 3 and D. We'll see if there's anything else to kind of tap into. That's what my hope is if he does come back next year, because I think he's going to have one of the more difficult stare go decisions.
Yeah, and again, me calling him a mover, this is someone who I had middle of second round to I would be completely comfortable like outside the top 20 if he is still there, going ahead and getting him. Again, you touched on a lot of the offensive stuff that I loved. Duke does not win that Siena game without some heroic defensive performances from Dame Sarr. Like playing well off of his assignment to make plays, the way that he can map the court defensively, the way that he can kind of play a free safety role within the scheme of a defense, and his know-how, his intuitive nature to see what's happening away from the ball and be able to go and respond to that while also still being a pretty good point of attack defender as well. And Duke has used him. You did a great job of elaborating on this earlier in the breakdown, but just a wide range of positions that Duke has put him on whenever they're going up against a tough team with a tough assignment who's athletic and can do a number of things on the ball. Dame is the guy who draws the assignment. So
yeah,
if I have a guy who gave a little bit of, like, I know it's international play, say what you want about the state of international basketball, whatever the case may be. The fact that there was just something there with him with the ball in his hands, like, is not what I'm hanging the evaluation on. But if I know for a fact I'm getting a light, like a greyhound defender who over the course of the season has at least given 40% is nothing to sneeze at, 39%, whatever you want to call it, if you want to round up to 40. But the fact that he's shooting 39% on corner threes while giving you that level of defense, with there also being some sort of potential underlying thing, like I'm not saying he's going to turn into an on-ball dynamo, but if he can give you second side actions to like on a scrambling defense to make good decisions, 20, like, again, I'm not asking for much here, Jam, but like drafting that dude 23rd sounds pretty daggone valuable to me.
Yeah, it definitely does. And we talked about the value of the corner three and what he's showing there. Like he shot 78 of them. He's not like he shot 30 or something like that. It's a pretty solid sample size that he's shooting from corner threes that you really kind of sink your teeth into and really believe in. The form is pretty compact. He did shoot an air ball that, you know, which wasn't great to close the half in the Siena game, but for the most part, he's shown the touch. The mechanics are there. Like when you watch him shoot, looking kind of using the eye test, you see that there is something there. And once again, as I mentioned before, it may not be the upper 30s or 40% shooter like overall, but certainly those corner threes, it's going to be a high level shooter there. We're seeing that, and that's something he can rely upon. And kind of the last thing I want to mention about Dame, at least right now on his defense, is he's listed at 190 pounds. And I'm just curious how many fours that he can defend. And a lot of times I'm thinking of fours, there can be some big men there, but a lot of fours that I'm thinking of are like more big wings that play the fours, those 6'8", 6'9", guys who can handle and do some things with a little more girth to them. I do like Dami's frame despite still being fairly thin at 190 pounds. There's mature muscle there, there's broad shoulders. I think this is going to be a very projectable frame for him to continue to add strength and be able to go against a lot of those big wings.
Well, let's take into consideration we're talking about the TCU game in the tournament. He
Yeah.
went up against Edmonds,
Yeah.
and I'm not a Duke guy, okay, but like going back and watching the film, Edmonds was legit like extending arm, like shoving Dame Sarr
Yeah.
away from him. And multiple times in like one possession, Edmonds would legit Heisman Sarr away to get him off and just would not. Dame was unrelenting, right?
Yeah.
And like Edmonds, I know is an undersized 5 in college, like the way TCU runs him.
Mhm.
That kind of approximates to like an NBA 4 in terms of just like frame and physicality, right?
Mhm.
So, and he's doing that on the post, not the wing. So, if we're worried about like him up against physicality, I think we see that he doesn't shy away from it. Like he might get bumped, but he's got tools to be in recovery, you know.
Mhm.
So I kind
Mhm.
of trust him in those in those positions as well. And I can't help it. I'm an eternal optimist. I'm a romantic at heart. Jam. Everyone
There
knows
we
this
go.
about me. I can't help but think like he's just at some point he's gonna get stronger, you know. So like
Mhm.
over time, it's only gonna get better. And
Yep,
he's
that
already
the romance
shown the
train kicks in.
yeah, and he's already shown the desire to want to mix it up with anybody that's asked of him anyway. Like I love the drive, I love the motor, I love the size, I love the length, I love the defense, and again, 39% on corner threes. Like you got offensive utility right off the rip.
Yep, and that competitive fire, man, like, he's one of the first people to lead the patented Duke slaps on the floor, like,
Yep.
he's always yelling to the crowd, pointing at the Duke, all the jersey popping, everything like that. Sometimes gotta rein him back in, but, like, I really love just the competitive fire that he plays with. How much do you think there is to tap into as an offensive player? Because I don't see that happen, at least initially on the NBA level. If he was declared this year, I feel like that type of development, that type of use and opportunity will come more so on the collegiate level, next year. I can't imagine that he would stay beyond next year if he does come back. But with the team, that there still should be plenty of opportunities, and especially when you want to have some of your top returners leading the way. Do you think that there's more for him to explore? I know you talked about some of the passing stuff that he showed as a connector, but do you think there's more outside of closeout attacks and second side creation?
I hope so. Again, like
Yeah.
there was some jumbo playmaking stuff with him in Italy. So
Hmm.
again, it's not something that I would hang my hat on entirely, but I would rest easily outside of the top 20, maybe even at 20. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm getting this guy who I know who can do these things, who might be able to do something else. That's where steals and drafts happens, Jam. It's
Yep.
these guys
Yep.
who have known commodity things that they can do, but a lot of teams just weren't willing to roll the dice on the extra. Like how does it translate? What does it mean? A lot of it, as we know, is going to come down to how he fits on a specific team that's willing to take that chance on him.
Hmm.
I'm not hanging my hat on it, but he goes to the right team. It's definitely something that could be developed within him. Like he could do some potential Chris Middleton stuff. Like maybe, I don't know.
Who do you? I guess maybe you have to do some more I guess, reevaluation of these guys once we go to the end. But a name that popped up to me, how do you kind of evaluate or kind of compare the offensive game, or who do you trust? Kind of simplify a little bit more. Whose offensive game and kind of upside do you trust or want to believe in more between Dame and Bilal Coulibaly? Just
That's
as
a
prospect.
great that's a great one. That's tough because Bilal showed a lot of the on-ball stuff, but it
Yeah.
hasn't really. It's not asked of him as much in Washington as what the optimists would have hoped for, right?
Hmm. See
I hate to
Norman Coulibaly. I respect
Cool.
it.
I mean, sure. I don't think that there's a wrong answer here.
Yeah.
And I'm cheating with this answer, but like I've seen that Washington isn't doing it with Koulibaly, so I'm going to say Sarr just because there is the possibility that the team that he goes to is willing to tap into it a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like it's really where I'm going to go with it. And we see him shoot.
Mhm.
Koulibaly, like that's the thing is like how is he giving any sort of lift to an offense if he's not being like one of these funky like tertiary decision makers, you know?
Yeah, that's kinda where I'm trying to figure out. I think he's somewhere in that kind of spectrum of player with Koulibaly, and it was good to see Koulibaly take a little bit of a step forward the past, I wanna say maybe like 5 to 8 maybe games opposed to past of this season so far, these past recent games. But yeah, I think he's just an interesting name to keep in mind when we talk about Dame, just considering the length, the position, similarity, and what they do is what their anchoring skill and tool being what they do on the defensive end, the defensive versatility, that playmaking.
I think that that's totally fair, Jam. Let's go to your guy who I'm so glad that you mentioned, and I'll let you set it up, but I'm so glad that you took the angle of approach that you did because based on the names that I have said already and the next name that I'm going to say, I had a very clear lane that I was trying to stay in. I'm so glad that you widened the spectrum on the types of players that we're going to be talking about tonight. Why don't you go ahead and bring on your second guy here?
Yeah, absolutely. My second guy is out of Miami, former Duke commit as we kind of transition from another Duke guy, and that is Shelton Henderson, who came with Coach Jay Lucas to Miami, getting out his letter of intent to Duke, and it's paid off wonderfully. He in his first season as a freshman, 6'6", 240 pounds, just a stout, strong,
Tank.
powerfully built young man that's like, man, like you can't believe that he's a freshman based on that build. Clearly a projectable NBA frame. That's always something evaluators we can check that off the that box quickly. That physicality, the NBA intensity, he's not the athleticism is going to play right into his hands. Not something we have to worry about. Averaging 13.8 points per game, 4.9 rebounds, 2.1 assists per game, 1.4 stocks per game this season. And in the two games, against Purdue, 18 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. Against Missouri, 15.6 rebounds, 4 steals. Doing a little bit of everything, showing what that two-way upside could be, despite still working on that shooting aspect, which is clearly a swing skill for him. Someone that's shooting 25.5% from three, 1.5 3-point attempts per game. But man, he is just a physical force getting downhill. Um, I think what I like most about him is just that melding of competitive nature and physicality. He will attack you downhill. He's not really looking to do any dancing with the ball. It's like straight to the point. There was one possession that he had against Purdue, catches the ball, spin move, this car, I don't even think he really hit the Purdue player that hard. I see now in your head, you remember that play. I think it was
Yeah.
Jack Bennett, and he's listed at
Mhm.
6'6", 215 pounds. But he just completely discarded him on the spin move for the score.
Yep.
This is kind of showing some of that strength. And he's consistent looking to get contact and like when he gets downhill and everything. One of the things that I love for what he does is using the stampede catch. He had that.
Yes.
And for those that aren't familiar with that, it's essentially just catching the ball on the go. You already have your momentum. And for someone who's that explosive and powerful like him, it's such a great weapon for him to utilize. He had that in one of the games and it was the Purdue game, actually the 2-foot hammer on that as well too. So just that
Splits the
two-way,
double doing that too, by
yes,
the way. Yeah.
exactly. So just him having that two-way upside skills to tap into, much more of a shot maker than a shooter, as I alluded to. I like some of the pull-up stuff. I think that looked a little bit smoother. I wonder if you saw the same thing, a little bit smoother than kind of the catch and shoot stuff. The catch and shoot stuff looked a little bit stiff to
Regimented.
me.
Yeah.
Yes, it definitely did like he was thinking, just trying to get through everything. But He had like a handoff into a nice pull-up elbow jumper. He had another contested pull-up midi that looked pretty good. So I'm optimistic about what he can do as a shot maker. Not I'm not I feel a little bit icky about the three-point shooting projection overall. I'm not sure if hopefully it could be someone that we talk about, Dame Sarr, who he doesn't have the same mechanics and kind of the clean form, but maybe it's someone who can hit the corner threes and be a reliable shooter there. But I think he's gonna be much more of a shot maker than shooter. Did you like what you've seen from Shelton?
Dude, yeah, so during the tournament, you did a great job breaking down the regular season stuff, Jam, so far, or what he did in the tournament, because he stole the show in a losing effort, which says a lot to me
It
just about like
does.
his performance.
It
Led
does.
his team in scoring with the fourth most attempts on the team too, by the way. It was one of my favorite things that I took away from that performance, right? During March Madness, he averaged 16 and a half points per game, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.5 steals, shot almost 62% from the floor. And going to the shooting that we were just talking about, Jam, just 20% from the free throw line and didn't hit a single 3-point attempt, right? So the
Yeah.
shot is a concern. He has been America's sweetheart though. Like everybody is already proclaiming, myself included by the way, everybody is proclaiming about he's going to be on my way too early, like sophomore breakout candidate list. It's
Yep.
easy to see why. You broke down the size, 6'6", 240 pounds. Saying it doesn't do it justice, man. Like this
It
dude
does
is
not.
he is a muscle car. It's all torque, it's all power, and just like any good muscle car, it looks good when it's doing it too, man. Like he is so much fun to watch. Something that I like to do because, I like us here at No Ceilings. Just like I feel like if you ask it, it's just like a professional athlete, like they're confident in themselves, right? Like I like what we do here at No Ceilings. So I went back during the game, just like, man, like how much have we wrote about? Because I knew I wrote about him a little bit for the site. Rowan Kent in 2024 had words on Shelton Henderson. Tyler Rucker preseason at the Formula Zero camp had words about Shelton Henderson. I wrote about him at week 2 of my sleeper prospects of the week breakout and in week 14. I know that other people have spoken about him glowingly at No Ceilings as well. Even if we don't have like the words on the site for them, I know in the group chat we've talked about Shelton Henderson. I know there's been text messages. We love Shelton Henderson. I have him in my second round already this year, knowing that that's stupid and that he's not going to stay if like that's the outcome, but it's just a
Yeah,
tip of the cap to the season that he's had so far.
exactly.
He is so much more than just like a fun scorer though. If you look at the rebounding numbers, right? Offensive rebound percentage of 7, defensive rebound percentage of just under 12, still percentage of 2.1, block percentage of 1.3, free throw rate of 47.2. Jam, if you look at this, 81st percentile in at rim efficiency, which you could look at a powerful forward and say, okay, like he is efficient around the rim. Jam, he got to the rim in the 78th percentile at his position compared to all other college players. So our guy knows how to get to the basket. He's got a little bit of cleaning up to do in terms of decision making, but still a
Mhm.
positive assist to turnover ratio at 1.2. True shooting percentage under 60. A lot of that is going back to the 3-point shot. But here's where you can take a little bit of solace, Jam. That far 2-point percentage is almost at 47%. So I think a lot of that, to your point that you touched on earlier, was that shooting off of movement is more natural for him as a shot maker as opposed to being a natural off ball floor spacer. I'm curious to see what the rest of the season and off season looks like for him. I've seen in the chat that, some schools need to go after Coach Golden. If I'm running an organization, the first coach that I'm calling is Jay Lucas. And I'm saying, bring your guy Shelton Henderson with you, and I will back up the Brinks truck. Because Jay Lucas, what he has done with a team full of outcasts is one of my favorite things in college basketball this season. Heck of a coach. The fact that he got Shelton Henderson to come play for him in Miami in the same conference, by the way, as Duke. So I love the fact that Shelton Henderson didn't run from the smoke either. Like I'm just gonna go down south and play at Miami, and I'll see you, later on in the season. So I love that. Those two are. I'm not one to say like do shady stuff or anything like that. But again, if I'm running an organization and both of those two were in bounds in terms of communicating, those are the first two calls that I'm making if I'm running a college program.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those that may not know, just kind of the connection with Jay Lucas and Shelton Henderson. Shelton Henderson went to the same high school, obviously not at the same time as Jay
Sure.
Lucas. And then also Henderson played on Jay Lucas's his father's AAU team on the grassroots JL3. So that's kind of the connection there, that Houston connection, and how he ended up there in Miami, and well, initially at Duke as well too. And yeah, I just echo everything you said about Jay Lucas. He's been phenomenal. My only kind of thing I would say about that, I don't see him leaving Miami, at least like right now. I just
Sure.
it's beautiful Miami. I feel like the NIL stuff is going to be there. And, you're winning and everything like that. It would be very funny if the we got some little breaking news I saw in the chat about looks like that Hubert Davis is gone from UNC. It would be hilarious if they had some interest in Jay Luke, because that's the type of coach I feel like they need.
Reinvigorate the fan base,
Yeah,
reinvigorate the blue blood program that you have. Be taken more seriously. Be the type of coach that's going to attract the sort of talent that you have to have at a prestigious program like North Carolina.
yeah.
I'm I would sleep on his doorstep. I would call him every day. I would send him flowers, fruit bat. Like I'm not joking, Jam. Like this is how much
Yeah,
I respect this guy, and I think he's the type of coach. If we look at what's happening in college basketball right now, the coaches that are bringing in the players, get someone who's charismatic, who loves these kids like he does, and you whatever you spend, you're gonna make back hand over fist. Like that's
mhm.
just it's gonna happen, and just enjoy the ride. But to the Shelton Henderson side of things again here, Jam, very, very fun player. I was thinking and this is why I love how we do the show together. I was thinking more of like this year's guys, but I think stock improvement for next year, we saw it all over social media, man. Like he's going to be circled in red, the number one returning prospect probably next season. I'm not even trying to be hyperbolic. I think in a lot of people's boards, like way too early boards, the number one returning guy is going to be Shelton Henderson with a bullet.
Yeah, he definitely should be right up there. And then, like, with his exercise, and just as we tied in the philosophy piece, as I mentioned, I think it's a momentum building type of thing with March Madness, and that necessarily is not always associated with it going directly to guys who are going to come out this cycle. It's about building that momentum into next season, where the attention is going to be even more on you based off your performance and kind of just what that trajectory and profile is. And all the pedigree is there, 5-star recruit there for Shelton Henderson. The frame, everything is there. It's just like, man, once that shooting comes around, the 3-pointer comes around, it's like, look out. And if it doesn't quite come around to like the highest of heights, just that shot making, I think, could potentially be enough. But like you said, man, he's going to be one of the top wings and returners coming back next year. I doubt that he's going to test the waters. I don't think it makes too much sense for him to do it this year. But if he's expecting to leave next year, then maybe I could see that. But considering
Get
you
your
only have
name out there, get some good feedback. I could see it.
yeah, but you only have, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's still only one time where you can try. The next time you do have to go. So you're gonna kind of have to weigh that. Similar to I think what Isaiah Evans did last year when he did declare, but was like, oh, before I quite get to the combine, he pulled out in time. So I think that could be a similar situation.
And I mean, I don't have any intel on the kid's character or anything like that, but just reading the tea leaves that I have available, I could see Henderson doing it again if he's willing to withdraw from Duke and just go play in Miami and not, like I said, run from the smoke. Wouldn't be surprised if he's willing to bet on himself in the nature of like, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and use my time now, get my name out there, work out, get these people to fall in love with me. But to your point, there's some areas of his game, like he's not perfect, right? There's a reason why he's
Mhm.
probably going to be coming back. He's got to work on the shot. He's got to improve the decision making stuff. But As a scorer, Jam, 95th percentile as a pick and roll ball handler, 65th percentile in transition, 50th percentile on cuts, 63rd percentile on putbacks, Jam, as like a wing forward. That's insane.
Yeah.
Only 34th percentile on spot ups, but he is in the 58th percentile in isolation and in the 54th percentile in handoffs. So a lot of areas of the game that he can be utilized in already without the shot being a true weapon. I think most people that's close to him are gonna be in his ear and tell him that he's got to work on the shot. Like if he shoots 34% on, let's say, 7 attempts per 100 possessions, Jam, that's like a pretty solid outcome to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure he already knows probably several years ago, like this is the
Yeah.
area that he really has to improve and certainly will be the swing skill for him.
All right, so we're going to hit our last break of the night. We have two more guys that have been impressed. We'll spend just a little bit of time talking about the guys who we saw maybe their draft stock take a little bit of a hit because
Mhm.
we don't want to dwell too negative. Jam, I'm having such a fun time just talking about the positivity, the strides that these players have been making. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer for too long on the show, and then we'll close out after those guys. So let's hit this break. Jam, be a little bit of homer with this next guy, Woo Pig Sooie. On the other side of the break, I'm going to come at you with my last March Madness mover in the upward direction. We'll be right back. All right, we are back here on the No Ceilings NBA Draft Show on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel. That's right, we're also on your podcast player of choice because you're listening to us. You already know. Why am I saying this? Because I have to. Who cares? All right, so today, March Madness movers, Jam and I, we've been talking about a lot of prospects. Some of them this year, some of them future years probably, but they've been impressive nonetheless. Jam, we opened the show talking about a pair of big men in Aday Mara and Tarris Reed Jr. Then the next set of guys that we talked about, I talked about Dame Sarr out of Duke, a guy who snuck up on us a little bit, and then Shelton Henderson, probably everyone's favorite returner coming into next season. Jam, on the front half of this commercial break, I teased the folks, Woo Pig Sooie. I got to talk about my Razorback guy. Very excited to talk about Meleek Thomas, the Arkansas guard, listed at 6'5", 185 pounds. Jam, on the season, 15.6 points per game, 3.8 rebounds per game, 2.5 assists, 0.2 blocks, 1.5 steals per game, shooting just under 44% from the floor, 42% from deep, and 85% from the free throw line. Jam, in March Madness, and it's not even been just March Madness. Like you said, there's been momentum towards the latter portions of the season through the conference tournament. And now in March Madness, I feel like he's really starting to shine.
Yeah.
20 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game, 3 assists, a half a block, 2 steals per game, shooting over 53% from the floor, 40% from deep, and hasn't missed a free throw attempt. Jam, you know that I have had him kind of teetering towards the back end of the first round through the majority of the season. On the last board, I actually had him as low as you can get in the first round at pick 30. After paying attention to him throughout this time and how he's accentuated his upward trajectory in the latter portion of the season, I have him at 18. That's where I have him right now.
Okay.
There's been so much shine on Darius Acuff Jr. in a John Calipari system. And I don't want to make it a narrative about John Calipari guards, but a lot of people have, so I'm going to feed into it just a little bit here. How often is the highest ranked Calipari guard like discussed, but then like one of the lesser like heralded, one of these like kind of role player guard types end up exceeding expectations? I feel like we're already kind of seeing that in season with Meleek Thomas. Now, we know he's a strap. He's shooting 42% on almost 10 attempts per game. We knew that. That was part of the evaluation coming into the season. At the beginning of the season, the defense was a mess. Now, it wasn't a mess in terms of desire or activity. He was all over the floor defensively, just really working in on how to hone it in. What we're seeing now, though, Jam, is someone who is learn the game so much better at this point of the season on the defensive side of the floor as opposed to the beginning. And dare I say, too, Jam, the playmaking has made leaps and bounds and improvements throughout the season for me as a Razorback fan as well. How are you feeling about Meleek?
Yeah, Meleek is someone I have at 35 right now. Well, I haven't made the updates to our new board yet, but the previous one on 35, and I think he's going to stay somewhere right around there. But it starts with the shooting. Man, as Phil Beckner always says, shooting is the separator, and that is certainly what it is for him. He's a thin guard, six, not necessarily small, but if you want to say small, small as in, just his stature as far as kind of the girth, that he
Yeah.
lacks, but he's listed at, I think he was 6'4", probably going to measure in somewhere between 6'3", 6'4". But the big thing for me is seeing him thrive next to another high usage guard. Quite wasn't sure. I think like a lot of people coming into Arc, so what to expect to see what that was going to look like, the distribution, the usage between all those talented guards. And as we mentioned before, with Acuff, he's allowed everyone to kind of fall into a really prime position, playing off of him and kind of moving on to the ball when necessary. And for Meleek to be able to, I don't see and really envision him as like a number one or number two type of option. That's just, I could be wrong, but that's just where my evaluation is. So usually when that's the case, you have to be able to not just play, but understand how to thrive along next to a high usage player, whether that's a guard, wing, whatever the situation is going to be. And he's done that with Acuff, spotting the floor, doing it off a standstill, movement stuff. And when it's time for him to attack closeouts and play off of that, he can do that. When it's time for him to get out in transition and go be a scorer, he can do that. He hit multiple pull-ups across different levels, got to the mid-range transition pull-up three. It shoots it with the utmost confidence. Like I just love shooters and shot makers. That level of pure shooting and tough shot making, something that I really value, and he has that. The playmaking, as you mentioned, I think it's more so of a connective type of thing. If he does come back, which I think will be a very interesting decision. We talked about Dame having a tough decision to make. Meleek could have another one to make as well too, to see if there's a little bit more juice as far as not necessarily a scorer on the ball, but as a facilitator, a playmaker. But I like some of the connective stuff that he does, whether it's hit ahead passes, the quick extra passes as well. He threw a lob pass. I think it was to Brazil, maybe in
He's
transition.
thrown several lobs
Yeah.
lately. Like Arkansas has turned into like the Lob City Clippers. And the only reason that it's being successful is, of course, Darius Acuff Jr. is one of the premier passers
King of the
in
lob
all of
passes.
king of the lob, king of any pass, really. Um, I mean, I'm an Arkansas guy, so whatever, take that for what it's worth. But I'm not the only one saying it. So, um, but the fact that Meleek has grown so much into a lob passer. Like he's thrown one to Brazil. He's thrown him to Billy Rich. Like it's easy to throw a
Mhm.
lob to Billy Richmond. Just throw it up as high as you can. He's probably going to go
Brazil
get
too,
it,
so he
right?
had some good targets.
He's got some great targets, but he's throwing them to Malik Ewan too, right?
Mhm.
So an assist to turnover ratio, Jam, even as someone who watches the Razorbacks the way that I do, going back and looking at the numbers and seeing that he has, look, Darius Acuff Jr., a 3.1 assist to turnover ratio through most of the season. Meleek Thomas is sitting at like 2.6, Jam. That kind of surprised me, just like looking at the number compared to the film. I don't think that the film is far off, but I was just like, whoa, that's better than I expected.
Yeah, and I think that's great for him, especially someone that is doing it not as the primary ball handlers. And I think really the role that he's playing right now to kind of simplify everything with the evaluation with him is just that the value what he's doing right now, I think that translate the role, at least as the floor. And if there's going to be some more juice with him with the ball in his hands, that could be something to explore. That's kind of why I really see him more as like a bench guard. Maybe there's certain situations that he can start, but I look for him to be just these bench spark who can space the floor, go get a bucket and really provide that punch off the bench that every team needs.
I can't help but wonder, going back to the Calipari narrative, like, these guys just typically have more, especially guards, right? Like,
Mhm.
these guys sacrifice. We were curious to see how Acuff and Thomas were going to play next to each other, because they were both considered point guards in recruitment, and we've seen Meleek settle into this like floor spacer. Just kind of wonder like how much more is there. And Jam, to the other aspect of it, I touched on it earlier. The defense has gotten so much better. I know he's slender, but he's got that nice like squared off like upper body that I just think is naturally going to hold more, like, another buzzword, functional strength, as he continues to improve that body as he gets older. I think he's got two-way utility in the league too. Like, I don't think that he's just going to be one of these guys who you put in an offensive setting, let him play for a couple minutes. I think he's going to give it to you on the defensive end as he continues to progress in his basketball career.
Yeah, I definitely think there is value to him on the defensive end. As you opened up with the evaluation on him, it was, and I still think this is the case, it's more about like the competitive spirit and effort that he gives, the defensive playmaking. That's the two-way value that he gives on the defensive side of that, as opposed to someone that's going to be like, hey, like, I'm going to need you to mirror the offensive guy and constantly flip your hips multiple times and do all those type of things. I don't think that's going to be the type of defender he is, that you're going to be like, hey, do all that in point of attack, but it's going to be more so effort, defensive playmaking. And I think that's more than enough for what he can provide you on the offensive end. And I just wanted to touch on the comment about the point guard stuff. For me, my
Yeah.
evaluation for both of them, for both Acuff and Meleek Thomas, that was my concern. I didn't see either one of them as like a full-time point guard. Acuff, for me, I think he's answered a lot more of those questions, as he's done with a lot of his game, especially offensively. But I think for those, I didn't view either one of them as true point guards, and I still don't see it that way with Meleek. I think maybe for him to reach his ceiling, he's going to have to be more of a point guard, of course. But I don't think that's going to be like his natural game, and I think that's more than fine, because I think the connectivity is there, and if you have that type of stuff and you can make reads out of pick and rolls and close out attacks, that's more than fine.
I mean, getting back to some Calipari guards, Malik Monk, not a point guard, still has a lot of utility with the ball in his hand. Tyler Hero, Devin Booker. Not saying that he's necessarily going to be any of these guys. I'm also not going to completely rule it out either,
Mhm.
based on where those guys were drafted. It's funny that Malik Monk, out of those three that I listed, was drafted highest of all those Calipari guards. Um, I just I've been so in love with the in-season improvements, and then watching him, high point. Again, I know that like it's not indicative to the entire sample, but
Yeah.
it's upward trajectory. Like, defending a driver, chest on him, sliding, dude goes up for a layup. Nope, swats it out of his hands. Like, clean technique, clean execution, no fouling. I've just been loving the improvements. And we touched on the nuclear shooting, 59% on transition threes. That you could do a lot with that in the NBA Jam. We'll transition now, because I could do this for the rest of the night just talking about my guy Meleek Thomas,
Just
as you
real
know.
quick question about
Please
him. Why
do.
don't you is it necessary, it could be a maybe easy, simple answer, but why don't you think Meleek Thomas gets enough credit and love as one of the better shooters in the draft? Is it because Acuff has just been so phenomenal that it overshadows everything else?
I think so. And forgive me, I know one of our fans, like way earlier in the chat when I was
Yes.
talking about him, it might have been Norin. If someone just wants, if you care enough to correct me, go ahead and correct me. I'm sorry if I got the wrong name. But someone literally did say the most overshadowed prospect
Mhm.
in the draft, and I do think that it's funny, the smallest best point guard in this class is casting the biggest shadow on Meleek. And even as someone who watches the Razorbacks, I've had to give like a real concerted and concentrated effort to really see the impact that he's had on the season and the continued growth. It's taken like dedicated, concentrated effort on my end as a Razorback fan. So I could understand how he is kind of sneaking up on the draft community. I would just encourage people to just go back and look. You know, even when I was talking with Metcalf doing like our March Madness breakdowns here on the YouTube channel, I asked him, like, is it crazy that he might go top 20? Because this is when my take was kind of formulating. And Metcalf said there might not be another player who has had a better, like, last month than him comparatively in the class. And again, we're talking about that momentum. Like, March Madness isn't the sentence, but it's damn sure been an exclamation point, in my opinion, for Meleek.
Yeah. I definitely agree. And it's great to see him get his just due and building that momentum as we get closer and closer to combine season.
I wholeheartedly agree. All right, Jam, I was a homer. Let's get you in the homer seat now. You had another prospect that you wanted to recognize for the tremendous growth that he has shown as of late.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Duke Cayden Boozer, who arguably has saved the season for the Blue Devils since Caleb Foster's injury. You know, just based on the year, 7.5 points per game, 2 rebounds per game, 2.9 assists per game, 0.9 stocks per game, shooting just under 50% from the field, 28.1% from the 3-point line, and 80% from the foul line. But since Caleb Foster's injury, getting mixed up with all the C's on the Duke squad.
Killer C's.
Caleb Foster's injury. And starting in the ACC tournament, all starts since he got his first start in the ACC tournament, 13.8 points per game, 3.4 rebounds per game, 3.2 assists per game, 0.8 steals per game. And he's still the 3-point percentage. We'll talk about that later, but 23.1% from three. Still, that is the swing skill, but he's shooting 92.3% from the line. And really during this stretch, Duke has needed someone to be a reliable facilitator alongside of Cam, and someone that can put the ball on the floor and make a play. And he's stepped up and he's done that. And particularly in that Siena game, 19 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. And the buckets that he was hitting, they were just always seems to be so timely. It would be like Siena just kept hitting shots. Duke can't get a stop, but they need to keep pace to eventually try to get a stop. And Cam and Cayden will work together so many times to create points. And oftentimes it was Cayden working ball screens, getting downhill, using that size. He had multiple floaters in that game, which has become a real staple of his game. And it has been, you know, in the priors as well, but as he's really starting to get more usage, he's been able to get to that and play his game. And I think kind of the biggest thing that we've seen during this 5-game stretch, and including with the NCAA tournament, this is the Cayden Boozer a lot of us wanted to see early, that we saw in the priors in the high school level as well too. But just a reminder of just having patience with prospects. You know, it's about fit and opportunity. And he was always had the right fit there with Duke, playing with his brother and everything like that. But now he's been able to ease along the opportunity for more usage with Foster being out, and he stepped up. You know, it's happened right towards the end of the season where he's been able to navigate his freshman year and really see and understand exactly the way he needs to play. And he's just really been phenomenal as a scorer. And one of the things I do like about him as a scorer is how crafty he can be inside with those floaters, reverse finishes. He had one of the Siena games, a very high finish off the glass too. So I do like that he has all those different things that he, quite frankly, he needs to have. You know, he's not the biggest of guards. Yes, 6'4", kind of, you know, stocky. But as far as him have positional size, that's there for the most part. But he's not like he's 6'5", 6'6" with a lot of stuff to compensate for the lack of explosiveness around the rim. But all in all, like, I just love the way that he's facilitated. He's created shots for guys. He's played with confidence as he continues to try to find his confidence, especially as a shooter.
Dude, fantastic breakdown. Cayden was a guy who coming into the season, I had as a lottery level guard.
Yeah.
And just with the way that the season has gone, had to move well off of that. You know, on the season, 7.5 points per game, over 2 rebounds, just under 3 assists per game, 0.9 stocks per game, shot 50% from the floor, 81% from the free throw line, only 28% from deep jam. In the tournament, just like you mentioned, his role has kicked up. You know, with the Caleb Foster thing, probably not going to see him again for the tournament, right? So, going to continue to be opportunity for Cayden, but the preparation and the readiness from him has shown through March Madness, averaging 14 points per game, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 55% from the floor, only 20% from the 3-point line, but has made every one of his free throws as well. Interesting things about him: per synergy, a 100th percentile scoring off of cuts, Jam. I know that he's a good off-ball mover, and I know that Cam Boozer typically has the ball in his hands a lot in his playmaking for his guards and his wings. It would have been really hard for me to assume that he would have been in the 100th percentile, but there he is. 74th percentile scoring as the pick and roll ball handler. Even though the 3-point shot has been where it is, he is still in the 59th percentile scoring out of spot ups, and he's in the 46th percentile scoring out of isolation. So, a guy who is showing, like you said, that kind of know-how, that craftiness, that level of intellect, the built-in synergy that he has, obviously playing with his twin brother, who he's been playing with his entire basketball career, knows where to be on the court to be in the most advantageous position to help his team no matter what. Positive assist to turnover ratio of 2.3, steal percentage of 2.1, giving you that two-way ability. That 6'4", 205-pound frame really shows up in a lot of positive areas for his game. I'm with you. He has impressed me. There's, of course, been some comments in the chat about it in terms of coming back, being a lotto guy next year. Does he just want to play with his brother anyway? I'm going to have a little fun with you like I did with Metcalf here, Jam. Did he stealthily wait until the end of the year to be good so he could be a second-round pick and go play with his brother in the NBA? That's conspiracy Steven talking here.
No way. I think he definitely wants
Okay.
to be a first round pick. But yeah, he's really stepped up to the moment. That is a credit to him. That is a credit to what the Boozers just in general have done all throughout their career. They've stepped up, they've won, they've been there at the biggest moments. And last year in the semifinals of the Chipotle Nationals, Cayden hits the game winner to send them to the championship. So this has really been in his DNA, just like his brothers. And it's just been fantastic to see him really come through when Duke really needs it and him get this boost to his draft stock. And as you mentioned, you had him as a lottery level guard. I had him in the first round to start the year, in the second round right now. And I think a lot of it has to do with the shooting. And I believe we also tied to the shooting. Was it, so I can find in the chat, but someone said that they don't necessarily see a special skill, the dirty dance, no special skill for Cayden. And I think that is maybe the one greatest hang up for him, not necessarily having that elite skill combined with the shooting. I believe it was the Florida State game and somewhere in the ACC tournament, but there was a one possession that was, I believe, was pick and roll, maybe not even pick and roll, but essentially Cayden's defender was just dropped all the way off, daring him to shoot, and he eventually tacks it and then kicks it out. But you just see all the indecisiveness, and then right after that, it showed Cam talking to him, and he's just like, "What are you doing?" essentially, and just be aggressive, and giving him that
Fighting
type
with
of
them like they do in their commercials that they're in together, right?
exactly. If they're going to give you that, take it and do that. So I think there is some concern once he gets to the NBA level. There's going to be a lot of going under screens, backing up, mucking up the defense. So I think that's something he's going to have to continue to work through when he's showing that. be a confident shooter, although the form, I think, is a little bit, not a little bit, it's a lot wonky, but he's been able to show that he can be a shot maker, although a bit of a streaky shooter. But I think that's something he's going to have to continuously work on, in addition to being able to try to find a skill that he really can hang his hat on.
Yeah, and it's really, unfortunately, just like it is with so many players, it's going to come down to the shot. Like for me as a guard, particularly off of the dribble,
Yeah,
we see that the shot has only decreased in terms of the 3-point, but there's touch indicators here, Jam. He's in the 63rd percentile scoring at the rim as a 6'4", 205-pound guard. He's made every one of his free throws in March Madness. I touched on the fact that he's an 81% free throw shooter. There's top level guards right now that are being talked about in the top 10 who
yeah,
aren't at 81%, right? And we're looking at their free throw percentage saying that that's a touch indicator. And then the far 2-point percentage at 48%. So there's reason to believe that the shot can improve. I don't know how much of it is going to be a mechanical change or just a comfortability, maybe a little
yeah,
bit of both of those things, but that's ultimately going to be the swing skill for him. And there's got to be more of an opportunity for him. I'm not sitting here saying that Coach Shire didn't give him a chance, because I do feel like he did, even when Foster was
for
in the
sure.
lineup.
Yeah,
I feel like he was given the opportunity to do it. So it wasn't just the coach leaning on the veteran guard on the team. I feel like Cayden could have took it if he played at the level to do it. Um, but I think that this is a good name. I don't have him in my second round. Probably dumb of me. I just I'm I guess it's of the mindset that it's kind of hypocritical, but that's what we do. Like the only like you, if you speak for a living, like you're gonna contradict yourself, right? Um, I don't think that he is going to be drafted this year, but I could be completely wrong. It's probably worth me going back and looking at it. I just haven't, again, to be completely honest, I haven't taken him seriously as being a draft candidate this year. But if if he declares and goes and tests, probably putting him in the second round at a minimum.
yeah, absolutely. I don't expect him to test. Expect him to come back to Duke. There's obviously speculation that he could be up in Miami and all that stuff. But I think, especially with this run here with Duke, he'll probably stay there. But we'll see what happens. And shout out to Sundeep in the chat. How are these guys talking to each other and reading the chat at the same time? We want to try to keep up as much as possible. We always appreciate y'all coming in, the audience, and just hanging out with us, whether if you're talking to us or in the chat or having questions for us. So we appreciate y'all and value y'all and want to try to get to as much as possible.
And I read the comments post live too. So if you're coming in thinking you're going to sneak one in on me, your guess again, my friend. I'm going to read your comment. And if you say something mean, I'm probably going to hit you with a God bless, just so you know. So I'm gonna treat the vinegar with sugar and see what happens. But all right, Jim, let's wrap with the positive. Let's get a little bit negative here, because we got to do that. We're in the draft space. We got to be mean sometimes.
Oh man,
Um,
we have to.
yeah, we get to. It's a privilege. It's an honor. Pressure is a privilege, as we like to say in sports. Let's just touch on the stock down. Give a little bit of reason as to why this is. If you want to do full breakdown, I'm not going to stop you. If you make me do it, I can do this all day. If we want to do full breakdowns, we can. Do you want to give your stock down? Do you want to kick us off negatively, or do you want me to?
Well, I think I'm a little less negative than you, but I
Okay.
mean, I'll go first. Mine, I have Bruce Thornton, and it's not, for the way I looked at this is we kind of preface very early in the show, which is I appreciate y'all sticking with us almost 2 hours ago to start this. But as we kicked off with the philosophy, it was just about, I don't really take too much value in these tournament games. Um, and with Bruce Thornton, it was essentially about the opportunity. So against TCU, it was 10 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 and 9 from the field in 40 minutes of action. I just thought he had an opportunity to really solidify himself as a second rounder, or potentially just a priority two-way guy. I don't think that's outside of the question now, but just having that spotlight as someone as Norton, I agree Thornton is really undervalued. I thought he had a chance to really show that on the bigger stage, and just didn't really get a chance to really do that. Now, I wouldn't necessarily the chance was there, but he just didn't rise up to that level that he is capable of doing. And
Didn't seize the carp, you know, he didn't
exactly,
carpe
there you
diem.
go.
Yeah.
And that's just all it was for me about Bruce Thornton. Not necessarily negative about the overall game that he played. Maybe you want some more shots, 10 points and 3 of 9 shooting, everything like that. But just the opportunity was there for him to do a little bit more and just wasn't taken advantage of. So now I think it's going to come down to him probably being in the G League Elite camp. We'll see if he gets a straight NBA Combine invite, but he had a chance, I think, to play himself out of that and really get right to the Combine with a good performance.
Yeah, and just real quick on the season, almost 20 points per game, over 5 rebounds, almost 4 assists, 1.3 stocks per game, shooting 55, 40, 83 on the season, right? So did a lot of work in the regular season, has built in this case like one of the more prolific Ohio State Buckeye basketball players that the program has
Yeah.
had. Like if you look
Yep.
at the overall tenure, right? In the tournament, just the one game, the loss against TCU, I picked Ohio State because I thought Bruce Thornton
Me
might have had a
too.
little bit more something to say. 10 points, 4 boards, 4 assists, 1 steal. Shot 40% from deep and 100% from the free throw line. Sounds good, but only 33% from the floor. If you're looking for reasons to still believe in him, Jam, this is where it gets crazy. Per synergy, 98th percentile score out of pick and roll, 97th percentile scoring out of spot up, shooting 51% on a spot up threes, 94th percentile in isolation, and the 90th percentile on screens. So a lot of versatility there. Assist turnover ratio of 3, very good, pretty solid rebounder. Defense is good enough. He's got good size. Maybe he digs in a little bit more on the pro level without so much being asked of him on the offensive end. True shooting percentage of 66.5. That's stupid, right? You shouldn't be able to do that, but he did it. And a BPM of 11.6. So a lot of positive indicators for him on the season. Sucked to see him go out the way that he did. Jam, I'm going to go to mine, and I'm going to call out Dirty Dancer in the chat. I'm a little offended. I'm a little hurt, Dirty Dancer. He says, when we opened this, the stock down, Dirty Dancer said the sponsored Ament segment. I feel like that's a shot at me. And I just want to admit that, like, hey, I haven't been the biggest Nate Ament fan. But I'm capable of not just like sinking down on one player. I'm a little bit bigger of a scout than that. I'm actually talking about Thomas Haugh today. Believe it or not, he's going to be the guy that I have as my stock down. And it's not so much that I'm sorry, I left that comment up. That's not me giving hate to Dirty Dancer. I hung that up longer than I should have. I'm not saying I'm out on Thomas Haugh. I had him at 17th on my last board. I have him at 19th now. So like obviously I hate his guts. He's moved down 2 spots in a month, right? Obviously the upset that happened with Florida losing in the manner that they did. We saw Haugh really wasn't his most efficient self. And I just feel like a little bit of doubt has crept into the mind because the shooting has improved, but it's not been great. It's better, but it's not awesome. He's played out of position, in my opinion, through most of the season, and that's been good. As a 4-man, I think he does give you some utility in like maybe an Obi Toppin type of role. I think that there's other comparisons that people will make. I just think that in the March Madness in particular, maybe you look at the age a little bit more closely compared to some of the other players that are in this class and say, man, like Florida really got exposed a little bit. Like Haugh in particular got a little bit exposed, even though he still put up a team high 8 3-point attempts, 2 of 8 from deep. Playmaking was really good in the first round game. The second round, not so much. I know he's high energy, high intensity. is he a guy that I want to draft really, really high? I know he's high character marks. I know he's high effort, high motor marks. Skill wise, is it worth looking at? Dude, there are people, Jam, and you may be one of them, but there are people that have him in like a 12-ish range, 10-ish range. I'm just wondering if his performance in the tournament left a little bit of a foothold to doubt it a little bit. Maybe looking at an Aday Mara a little bit more. Maybe looking at Aday Sarr and Meleek Thomas a little bit more than a guy like Thomas out.
Yeah, that's all very fair. I was actually very curious to see why you had picked him, and I think you did a good job of explaining why, even though like, I thought his performance was better than what you're kind of giving credit for, or kind of what you've seen. Because I obviously 3 of 11 is not the way you want to be ending your season, but still 19 points, 11 of 12 from the line.
Yep.
Um, I think it's just more so for a guy that, as you talked about, the 3-point shooting is the swing skill. 8 of his 11 attempts were from three. That's kind of my only real negative of that game. And that's why I'm not really taking too much negative inventory, negative data point from this. And I'm not really too worried about him. This performance has not changed how I feel about Haugh. He's actually someone who I've grown the most on this season. I say it to say that I still do have him at 27, despite growing on him. But it comes down to the shooting, as you mentioned. It has come around. The confidence, the mechanics looks pretty good. I'm just not sure if the kind of natural touch is there. Probably always be more of a shot maker than a real shooter, but it would just be much easier of evaluation if the shooting was cleaner. We can say that about so many people,
Sure.
but I'm excited that he's gone and taking strides as a shooter, not just in terms of shooting the ball a little bit better. I know it's been up and down, but just the volume as well too, and doing it playing out of a position too. So really, for me, with how he hasn't done too much to really change my mind about him in a negative way with this performance, it's going to come down to really what has always come down to the whole season, how well he's going to be able to consistently shoot. Doesn't have to be an upper 40% shooter. That's kind of my thing. You just have to be a reliable shooter. Don't have to be that top of the scale shooter. And what he does at that size, can attack, close out, the athleticism, the play finishing, I think all that's going to be enough. But for me, it's not enough to be in the lottery. It'll be certainly somewhere in the 20s if I do get up that high. But I can certainly see myself getting him in the first round. Wouldn't be too mad about it, but it will certainly have to be late in the first. And kind of just to close it out with, I'm glad you brought up the Dami Sarr comparison, because, man, that's really something to think about there, too. Two guys, questionable shooters, maybe different trajectories who you want to believe in. Sarr's the clear better defender, I think. But just the energy that Haugh brings with that size as well too is very interesting. But man, I'm gonna have a lot to think about, because I can certainly see at the end of the day Sarr moving ahead of Haugh on my board.
Yeah, and fantastic breakdown on your part as well. The intention, and I know like we got a little negative, and I think little might even be exaggerating, because there's just like
Mhm.
you said, great performances. I I just think that he left a little bit of room for even those who have been high on him. Like I've thought about him in the lottery. Like he and Yaxel, I think, are two guys that are kind of grouped similarly. I feel like
Yeah,
if you like one, you almost kind of have to like the other. For a lot of people, I would never tell anyone what to do, right? But I feel like a lot of people have them close within their rankings, whether they're higher or lower on them. I wonder if the performance left foothold at all for people to maybe be like, huh, maybe not. Maybe he's not going to shoot. And then what does that look like at the next level? Is it worth taking 12th, 13th, 14th in the draft compared to some of these other younger guys who might be able to do a little bit more? So that's
yeah.
really all I got on that. I don't want to get into crazy on the negative aspect of it. But Jam, dude, we'll wrap up. We talked about our biggest movers. We talked about some guys who we might need to pump the brakes on a little bit, maybe just a little bump, just a little. Hey, flash my tail lights just real quick, and then I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah.
Um, we'll wrap the show though, Jam. I want to just let everyone know that I've appreciated the amount of positivity that we've gotten from our No Ceilings community. So thank you all so much for that, for where we've
Absolutely.
gotten with the viewership here, where we've gotten from our reading, contingent of people nearing 8,000 subscribers on our Substack at NoCeilingsNBA.com, where we're having written work 6 times a week, sometimes doubling up on days. We have our No Ceilings Plus, where for a little bit extra, you're going to get a lot more content that you're going to be able to consume. And just so you know, that also helps us to be able to do things like go to Portsmouth, like what Jam and I are going to be doing, and then turning around and giving you everything that we're seeing on the court, that we're hearing from people that we're going to be talking to. We've already kind of laid out like people who we're going to be in connection with. And guess what? You guys are our family. We tell our family everything here at No Ceilings, right? So we'll keep you posted as to everything that's going to be going on. Um, and at NoCeilingsNBA.com this Thursday, by the time everyone's listening to this on a podcast, or if you're going back and listening to it on your podcast, Thursday, tomorrow, I'm going to have a Darren Peterson piece that's going to be dropping. And that's just going to be
Ooh.
talking about the way that draft distortion has kind of taken place, in my opinion, with him, where like all this extracurricular conversations with him is shifted how awesome he is as a basketball player. So I'm diving into that. I'm going to have my sleeper prospects of the week drop probably Sunday, just so I can get a wider range of games to break down like who is standing out to me as a potential sleeper for either this year or future drafts. Jam, I know you've been at basketball games. I know you got prospects that you're writing about. Please go ahead and plug the stuff that you have going on, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. So on Friday, I'll have a piece out on Isaiah Evans. I think maybe Dirty Dancer in the chat was saying that he was not the biggest Isaiah Evans fan. So maybe I can change your mind just a little bit. We'll see. And other people who are not as high as on him as I am. So I'm looking forward to getting that out. So look forward to getting that out on Friday.
There we go. I can't wait to read that. And then Jam, like I said, we got 3 more episodes till Portsmouth. We're going
Wow.
to do the sicko draft once we get the results of who's going to be competing at Portsmouth. Jam and I are going to pick our favorite sicko prospects. We're going to let you guys decide who's the winner. Everyone wins in a sicko draft. But Jam, why don't we go ahead and say goodbye to the nice people? Anything that you want to say before we close the show?
As always, really appreciate all the support that you give Steven and I and the whole No Ceilings family. Like this whole draft stuff, like it's a community. Like this is what we want to continue to build. It's not just for No Ceilings, it's for everyone. We could not do this without y'all. Just the constant interaction, support, the different opinions and perspectives. You giving me, Steven and I, the whole team, different things to think about from not just from different prospects, but from show ideas, from layouts, and just the way we want to interact and help grow everything. So we really appreciate y'all.
Yeah, it means a lot. So I can't think of a better way to close the show other than those awesome words from Jam. So for Jam, for myself, for the rest of the No Ceilings family at large, we will catch up with y'all next time. And just real quick, I'm going to take that back. Of course, with the March Madness continuing this upcoming Thursday, we're going to continue to do our recap shows. So around 10 o'clock every night, 10 o'clock Eastern time, we're going to be live on YouTube. If you want to come and share your thoughts on the games, keep us updated with scores as the games are continuing throughout the night. We really appreciate that. Just come hang out and have fun. Talk shop with us. It's a very hair down type of environment, so we would love for you to be a part of that. But for Jam, for the rest of No Ceilings family at large, and for myself, this has been the Draft Sickos, and we're going to catch up with y'all next time, family. Much love, y'all.